Zeltharan had performed over 3,000 mind extractions across 47 different species. The Vorthak interrogator's crystalline tendrils glowed with confident anticipation as they approached. The human prisoner's cell aboard the detention ship severed light. The human sat, cross-legged on the metal floor, eyes closed, breathing steadily. Designation, Marcus Chen, according to the files. A captured engineer from the human vessel that had somehow, impossibly, escaped from their trap in the Kepler system. The hegemony needed to understand how. Subject appears to be in a meditative state. Zeltharan noted to their recording device, their 4 arms manipulating the neural interface apparatus. Standard pacification protocols have proven unnecessary. Beginning mental infiltration. The human's eyes opened as the crystalline probe approached his temple. Brown eyes, unremarkable except for a strange quality Zeltharan couldn't identify, not fear. The Vorthak had seen fear in 1,000 different forms across the galaxy. This was something else. You know, Marcus said conversationally. I've been wondering when you'd try this. Zeltharan's translator rendered the human's words with mechanical precision, but something in the tone made their exoskeleton shiver. They had encountered defiance before, even bravado. This wasn't either. Your resistance is irrelevant, Zeltharan replied, adjusting the neural probe's frequency. The Vorthak mind meld has never failed to extract required information. Your primitive consciousness will yield its secrets. Marcus smiled, a peculiar expression that somehow didn't reach those brown eyes. You really don't know anything about humans, do you? The probe made contact. Zeltharan's consciousness dove into the human's mind, expecting the usual rush of alien thoughts, memories, and sensations. Instead, they found themselves standing in what appeared to be a vast library with impossibly high shelves stretching into darkness above. Curious, Zeltharan thought. The human's mind presents as an organized archive. This should simplify extraction. They approached the nearest shelf, reaching for a memory that glowed with recent importance, the escape from Kepler. But as their mental appendage touched the file, something else brushed against their consciousness. Oh, you found the recent stuff, came Marcus's voice from everywhere and nowhere. But that's not the interesting section. Zeltharan spun around but saw no one. This was wrong. Subjects weren't supposed to maintain coherent presence during extraction. The human should be passive, unconscious, while Zeltharan rifled through his memories like files in a cabinet. Where are you? Zeltharan demanded. I'm everywhere in here, Marcus replied, amusement coloring his voice. This is my mind, after all. Did you think I'd just leave? Before Zeltharan could respond, the library began to shift. The orderly shelves twisted and rearranged themselves. New sections appeared, areas that pulsed with strange, dark energy. The lighting changed from the soft illumination of the archive to something harsh and strobing. Let me show you something, Marcus said. And suddenly Zeltharan was moving, pulled by an irresistible force toward one of the darker sections. This is where I keep the interesting memories. The first file Zeltharan was forced to experience was from Marcus's childhood, but not the innocent recollections the interrogator expected. Instead, they witnessed a 7-year-old Marcus watching his father die in a mining accident, crushed by machinery while the boy's screams echoed uselessly in the cavern. The memory came with full sensory experience. The smell of blood and oil, the sound of breaking bones, the taste of copper and terror. But it wasn't the tragedy that made Zeltharan recoil. It was Marcus's clinical analysis overlaying the memory. Even as a child, even in trauma, the human mind had been studying the event, cataloging details, understanding cause and effect, planning how to prevent similar occurrences. Humans don't just experience trauma, Marcus's voice explained conversationally. We learn from it, we adapt, we get stronger. More memories flooded in. Marcus's time as a combat engineer in humanity's border conflicts, diffusing bombs while under fire, watching friends die and then immediately applying lessons learned to save others. Each traumatic experience came wrapped in layers of analysis, improvement, and determination. Zeltharan tried to withdraw but found they couldn't. The human's mind had somehow grasped their consciousness, holding them in place. You wanted to see how we escaped your trap? Marcus asked. And suddenly they were experiencing the memory from the inside of Marcus's head during the battle. But it wasn't just the tactical situation. Zeltharan experienced the human's thought process in real time. Marcus's mind didn't just solve problems. It solved them while simultaneously preparing for 17 different failure scenarios, calculating resource management, analyzing enemy psychology, and maintaining awareness of crew morale and safety. All of this happened in parallel, a feat of mental processing that should have been impossible for organic neural architecture. Your species thinks in single streams, Marcus observed. Very organized, very efficient. We think in cascading networks. Chaos and order simultaneously. The memories shifted again, and Zeltheran was suddenly experiencing humanity's history, but not as external events. They experienced it as Marcus understood it. 10,000 years of warfare, innovation, survival, and growth. Civilizations rising and falling. Technologies developing, art and science and philosophy evolving in complex interweaving patterns. But underneath it all was something that made Zeltheran's crystalline structure crack with terror. The realization that humans didn't just survive trauma and conflict, they required it. Every advancement, every breakthrough, every leap forward in human development came not from peaceful prosperity, but from facing impossible odds and refusing to surrender. We're persistence predators, Marcus explained, and now his voice carried something that Zeltheran's translator couldn't properly render, an emotion that had no equivalent in Vorthak psychology. We chase our prey until they collapse from exhaustion. We've been doing it for millions of years. It's not just what we do, it's what we are. More memories cascaded through Zeltheran's consciousness. Humans climbing mountains that killed them, sailing oceans that swallowed their ships, launching themselves into space knowing most would die, facing diseases and disasters and each other with the same relentless analytical persistence. Your hegemony has ruled the galaxy for what, 12,000 years? Marcus asked. Very impressive. Very stable. But you've been stable so long you've forgotten what it means to struggle, to adapt, to evolve. Zeltheran tried to scream but had no voice in this mental space. They were witnessing the pattern now, seeing how every defeat only made humans more determined, how every victory taught them new ways to win, how every contact with alien species became an opportunity to learn and grow and become more than they had been. We've been fighting and learning and adapting for our entire existence, Marcus continued, his voice now coming from the walls themselves. You brought us into your galaxy thinking we were just another primitive species to be conquered or absorbed. But we're not prey and we're not predators in any way you understand. The final memory hit Zeltheran like a physical blow. Marcus's first sight of the stars as a child, combined with his adult understanding of what humanity would become. They saw through his eyes a future where humans spread throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors or diplomats, but as an unstoppable adaptive force, learning from every species they encountered, growing stronger with each challenge, becoming something that couldn't be contained or controlled or understood by any static civilization. We're evolution itself, Marcus said simply. And you just invited us into your galaxy. Zeltheran's consciousness snapped back to their own body so violently that their exoskeleton cracked. They found themselves on the floor of the cell, all four arms spasming, their crystalline neural tendrils sparking and smoking. Marcus sat in the same position as before, eyes closed, breathing steadily. When he opened them, that same strange quality was there. But now Zeltheran understood what it was. It was patience. The patience of a species that had learned to hunt by outlasting anything that ran from them. So, Marcus said pleasantly, shall we discuss the terms of humanity's integration into your hegemony? Because honestly, I think you're going to find it a lot more comfortable if you're on our side when we start changing things. Zeltheran was still screaming when the security team arrived.